Fintech Australia and Tier 1 People present the 2022 People's Choice Awards. The Finnies Award, where the Australian fintech community gets to decide the winner. Make sure to join us on the 23rd of June 2022 in Melbourne for the industry's most prestigious awards event. Now, here are a few words from one of this year's finalists.
My name's Toni Knowlson. I'm the head of sales at FrankieOne. For those of you who don't know FrankieOne, we are a single connection to the global identity and fraud ecosystem.
FrankieOne are finalists for People's Choice Fintech Organisation of the Year 2022. Congratulations, Toni, on making it to the People's Choice Award finals. This is the award that the fintech community gets to decide. How is everybody feeling at FrankieOne for making it this far?
Oh, thanks so much, Dexter. Really excited. I think we feel very fortunate, actually. We've had an incredible journey over the last 3 years, and we're really hitting an inflection point of growth that we think is really exciting. And it is so wonderful to see the company that we're in as well, and some of the businesses, great businesses who are great friends of ours and sometimes great customers, to also make the finalists of the Finnies. So it is very exciting, and I do hope that nothing bad happens and we can have a party in real life this year. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, tell me about it. It's been the last 2 years now where I get to this time and the flights get cancelled, and I bought the dinner jacket and I'm never going to get to wear it.
There'll be a lot of people who are pretty excited to rub shoulders again, and certainly
Absolutely. Well, you gave in the intro there a little bit about the big problem that you solve.
Thanks so much, Dexter. There's so much great innovation in the identity and fraud space that we do 3 things. We bring it all together so you can access everything through one API. We give you a smart orchestration layer so you can personalize your customer journeys. And the third thing is you have a single view of your customer. I mean, the genesis story is probably the most pertinent one. FrankieOne was born out of a pivot, actually, where Frankie Financial was the original business, and Simon and Aaron, our co-founders, wanted to build a neobank. And this is about 5 years ago, and Aaron has a lot of experience building payments platforms in Asia. If you've ever bought an in-game purchase from a game across Asia, you've probably used his platform. Simon was a serial entrepreneur and had 2 successful exits, and they came together and wanted to build a neobank. And in kind of classic startup form, they found it fascinating that it was actually really hard to onboard a single customer, because you had to do a KYC or a know your customer check and make sure this was a customer that you wanted. And what they found as well is that this was a challenge all around the world. And I think that there's a bit of a perception that fintech historically hasn't scaled very well. I think the disruption in this space is so interesting because it's hard to be an international fintech because financial services legislation is often quite local.
Yeah.
And equally, a lot of these businesses are disrupting kind of an incumbent vertical proposition, right, where you can take out just a sliver of that vertical proposition and do it much better. And we're kind of doing both of those things. We're taking out the sliver and we're doing it better in 48 countries. And so when we found it was difficult to onboard a customer, we thought that we'd found a real business problem. And what's interesting now is when we talk to customers and investors 3 years on, is that they say that they get really excited by seeing us in what we're trying to do. And they refer to it as building foundational infrastructure that solves important business problems.
Yeah.
But interestingly, we do it both on the top line and the bottom line. So with the top line, we get more pass rates through some features in the system, which means you can check multiple data sources, and you're not beholden to an incumbent data provider when they go down. So get more customers on board, so more bang for your buck from marketing money, but also lower your cost structure and improve your bottom line because you're doing less manual integration work. And so we bring those 2 things to our customers. And I think that that's really relevant, particularly if you look at inflation around the world at the moment, I think there'll be a lot of companies that will index on both growing their top line revenue while reducing their cost.
Cool. And so typically who are your customers, Toni?
Yeah, so it's pretty exciting every week here at Frankie. We're winning some really fantastic customers, and typically we're really attractive to the top end of town. So sort of your large incumbent banks. We have 3 of the big 4 in Australia, and they love us because of the simplicity of integration and the access they get to multiple data sources. So for them, it reduces complexity. Complexity also in integration and contracting and purchase negotiation. Startups love us because we are international from day one, and so if they're thinking about scaling internationally, they can turn on new countries really quickly. And digital-first businesses that work in very competitive environments like your buy now, pay laters and the crypto exchanges, they love us because we offer a better onboarding journey with less manual steps. And I think expectations of that digital onboarding are so much higher these days. If you get blocked in an onboarding journey, you're not waiting. If you move to another, like in a highly competitive industry, marketing spend matters. And so those digital businesses that operate in disrupting some traditional spaces really love us. So we've got, today about 50% of our revenue comes from international companies. International customers. We've got, a bunch of case studies on the website, and we're moving reasonably quickly with some of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world. So I think there's a really interesting Web3 element of our business now.
Awesome. Now you have touched on this a little bit, Toni, but I wanted to ask you directly. It's a very competitive space, fraud and KYC. How have you differentiated from the competition? I mean, it's just incredible, the logos and the businesses that you're working with across that many countries. But how have you differentiated yourself to get there from not even 5 years to now be where you are?
I mean, the product's excellent. But what I would say is that, and actually we've won the large majority of those logos without a single sales or marketing person. So me as head of sales, I'm now building the team. But it's a real testament to the product team about the product market fit and just how compelling the product is. So I think competition is a sincere form of flattery, as they say. And it's interesting that there wasn't really a lot of competition for us. And so it was difficult for us to talk to customers sometimes about the reality of Frankie because they couldn't compare it to anything. They're like, right. Oh, that's new. That's interesting. We haven't seen that before. And so it's funny because if you can compare yourself to someone, then it's almost more validating around the opportunity. So I don't really see anyone, and we've done a reasonable amount of research in this space, anyone who's doing this internationally the way we have. And that was a very deliberate decision from day one where we've gone to the effort of integrating to over 350 data vendors and sources in 48 countries. So there's a business that's a couple of years ahead of us in the US called Alloy. If you've ever worked in the US, each state is like a country, kind of same for Europe, right? Each country has, they're not really part of the union. There's not a lot of union. There's a lot of country parochial dynamics. And so working in the US is complex. So 50 states, 50 different integrations, often to business registries. So Alloy are probably the easiest comparable to make. They're a couple of years ahead of us, and I think they're approaching their Series D.
Now, we've talked about some of the kind of epic growth that you've had over this last 12 months, bringing on some major clients now in 48 countries. What are the plans for future growth, and kind of where are you at investment round, and what kind of platform has that given you for further growth, Toni?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to the fact before that we think economically we're facing some headwinds globally. Yep. You see that through inflation rates in the US and Australia. And so we're at a very fortunate position where we have actually just raised some money, which was initiated by our investors. It's a really exciting round, and we'll be able to announce it in more detail probably in about 6 weeks. So
awesome.
Watch this space. So we feel really fortunate that we got ahead of that and that we're in a really strong position. Certainly, I sort of alluded to the fact that I'm reasonably new to FrankieOne, but I did do my due diligence before I started around, will I back my career in this space with this company? And what was super interesting to me was the paying customers. So it's great to be a startup, but being a startup with paying customers is very, very good.
Yeah.
And particularly big brands. And I remember there was kind of an inflection point when we signed on Afterpay. And I was talking to Simon, the CEO and co-founder at the time, and I think I was interviewing him. I was where you normally sit, and I was interviewing him, and he was talking about signing on Afterpay and the traction we'd got with the banks. And I thought, oh, this is very interesting. This could be very cool, all without any sales or marketing people. So to answer your question around what growth will happen next, we've had this, we're at this fascinating point where we can look at our portfolio of customers, and we probably sign about 10 to 12 new customers a month. And we can see really clearly what segments we play really well in. And so what is next is that we will really double down on those segments. And, unsurprisingly, they're key things like banking, lending, payments, gaming and wagering, Web3 and crypto, self-managed super funds in Australia are certainly really interesting, insurance, wealth management. And so we can see that we've actually got really strong clusters of customers in these spaces. And so we're going to get very focused on those, because we've been very fortunate that we've been pulled into those segments, and now we know which segments we have a real value add for. We're certainly pushing globally as well. We're looking to pick up, I think the rule of thumb is that you should have 10% of your revenue being derived from a country before you move into that country. And so we're already certainly playing in Asia, and I could see us setting up an office in Singapore pretty quickly. We're very close to first shoes on the ground. I shouldn't call them boots. They might be heels. They're actually likely to be heels on the ground in the US. And we're being pulled.
My wife wears boots.
Yes. Look, I wear cons, so it'd be the first.
Right, there you go. Cons on the ground.
First cons on the ground, gender neutral. And so first cons on the ground in the US, and we're about to close a couple of significant customers in Germany, actually, which will pull us into Europe. So a much more targeted approach into those key verticals where we think we've got a really strong customer proposition because our customers are thriving with us.
So we've talked a lot about one of the two key challenges for every single fintech. One is to get customers. The other is to hire talent.
Certainly, Frankie has some really great investors. I mean, Airtree and Greycroft, our key investors, really are exceptional from the amount of support they give to the business. And I do think that a couple of the key indicators were paying customers, but also that pull into these customers without having to have a sales team just shows how beautiful the product is. Like there is the capability in the product and the beauty of the product are very, very strong. And I love that about Frankie. So it is a war for talent. And certainly I have found that trying to hire in a sales and marketing team. And I think that that's a wonderful thing for people who have made their careers in software. Yeah. And we do something kind of special at Frankie. We recognise that, not dissimilar to Amazon, we want people who are great problem solvers, because not everyone's going to know the right way, and different like we live in chaos, and I love that. I love the chaos. I love the ambiguity. So this is the perfect place for me. But we want to hire people who are good problem solvers, and they won't necessarily come from a linear career path, and they also won't necessarily want to do the same job for 2 years. So we have a group at Frankie called Frankie X, and Frankie X is a group of very capable generalists that we can then point at problems in the business. And we're about 80 people now and growing very quickly. But even at 80 people, it's a real luxury to have the acknowledgement that we just want to bring great talent into the business, and that great talent will solve any of the problems that we have and will become really valuable tenured staff members and team members going forward. There are a handful of parents in the business, but certainly not everyone. There's a lot of dog parents in the business, I would say, but COVID's changed everything. And so we have to be thoughtful about how we support people in their personal life requirements and build a strong culture. And those two things, they are not mutually exclusive. You can do both, but you have to be deliberate about it. And so we have a great office environment because we come in Wednesdays and Fridays. And so we know everyone's in on those days. That works really well for us. We have lunch together. We're still of a size where we can do fun offsites and travel. And I think that's really important to build relationships. But you just have to be deliberate about doing both, because I think in a war for talent, you have to be flexible with people's individual requirements, and you have to be focused on building a really engaged culture, because culture can drive performance without having to have deep process. And certainly, we've been really deliberate about our culture. We've got cultural values that we've set. We hire on culture. We reward on culture. We make decisions based on our culture. We talk about things based on our cultural values. And so we're quite fortunate, again, I guess, that we've made that decision early and that we're building up our culture to be some of the mesh that holds us together.
Awesome. Now we're coming to a close, but before we kind of give you the platform to ask people why, or tell people why they should vote for FrankieOne, when the team looks back over this last 12 months, what are you proud to have achieved together, Toni?
Oh, what a great question. The last 12 months, I think from a personal perspective, our major headquarters is in Victoria, and I think Melbourne got hit hardest in COVID. And so I think building and growing a business in COVID and then recovering from the emotional and in some ways financial wounds that have remained from the heavy lockdowns in Victoria, I think is really important. Being able to adapt to a new way of working and maintaining a vibrant culture is really important. And I would just say some of the key customer wins that we've had have been so overwhelming. And there's a few that we'll be able to talk about pretty soon, but that are actually live on the platform. But some of the biggest companies in the world in the e-commerce space, in the gaming and wagering space, and in the crypto exchange space. I mean, I'm really buoyed by the way our customers value what we do, and the fact that we can add so much value to their business, I just think speaks volumes. So I would say people, our ability to adapt to change, and just the business success that really I guess reinforces what our firm belief was at the beginning of the journey, which was that we were solving a real business problem. I do think we're solving a real business problem, which is very validating. So I think that's great.
Brilliant. Well, this is your opportunity. Why should people vote for FrankieOne as this year's Fintech of the Year at the People's Choice Award?
Oh, I should have prepared for this. So, Dexter, I mean, we're really humbled to even be considered for People's Choice. I think why people should vote for us, we're playing a really critical role in the fintech ecosystem, providing infrastructure that helps businesses get to value more quickly. And a lot of our customers are commercial organisations, but a bunch of them are actually doing social good as well. So Grameen Australia are a business that use Frankie to be able to offer microloans to women to help drag them out of poverty. I think that's really important work, and we're able to be the infrastructure that helps them do that. So the fact that we can accelerate others' time to value, I think, is important. I certainly, when I joined, I have a deep conviction that Frankie is likely to be Australia's next unicorn, and I'm really proud to be part of a business that is set up to scale internationally from day one and has the opportunity to put Australia on the map, along with some of our great international successes like your Atlassians and Canvas. I think Frankie could be there. And, finally, I think the work we're doing brings the community together from the top end of town through to the startups, because we work with everyone in that space. And so rather than have competition between startups and the larger banks and incumbent institutions, we work with everyone. And so we hope that we can bring all of that together. Awesome.
Well, congrats to everybody at FrankieOne for making the finals, and good luck on the night, Toni.
Thank you so much, Dexter.
The People's Choice Award is brought to you by Tier 1 People, leaders in fintech executive search. We'll help you launch, scale, and innovate by finding world-class people.